So in April 2023, the government's efforts led to a reduction in security incidents, fatalities, and abductions compared with the figures for the month of March. According to Beacon Security reports, in the fourth month of the year, Nigeria recorded 382 incidents that resulted in 302 abductions and 706 fatalities. This affected 180 local government areas in 34 states, plus the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. A month-to-month analysis of the changes in the figures recorded in March this year and April show a significant decrease of 26.6% in abductions and 25.9% in fatalities. Now, joining us now to discuss this further is the Managing Director and CEO of Beacon Consulting Limited, Enterprise Security, Risk Management and Intelligence Specialist. Dr. Kabiru Adamu is live to us from our Abuja studios. Good morning, and thank you very much for coming through to the show this morning, sir.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Thank you. It's good to have you. This is a very important issue, national security. But let's look through this through the lens of your latest report from Beacon Consulting. Tell me more about this report. Give me the highlights.
Yeah, so thank you once again. The report was released in April, and in May, rather, the first week of May, and it covered the events that happened in April. And what we tried to do is to point progress or lack of it that has been made in security over the period. So, like you indicated, we saw reductions, 25% in terms of the events, and then almost a similar percentage in terms of the fatalities. But how many persons are we talking about? About 700 persons, and for just a month, you have that number being killed in one country. It's quite concerning. However, if you compare it with the previous year, 2022, in that same period that year, we recorded over 1,000 fatalities for the same period. So clearly, there has been some progress. But unfortunately, the fact that you still have up to that number of persons, about 700 persons being killed in a month, is something that is extremely concerning. And so, just like your report pointed, security was, when President Buhari took over, a major issue of concern, and sadly, as he is handing over, it still remains a major issue of concern that the incoming administration would need to prioritize and address. Some would even say that no matter the successes recorded by the Buhari administration, the lack of progress in the area of security would have diminished those successes. So clearly, the incoming administration is likely to be, judged, as it were, on the basis of its successes or not in the area of security.
Okay, so if you look at what the president-elect said during his campaign and what's already in the public space in terms of what his administration, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will focus on in terms of national security issues when we look at the impact on human life and property as well as economic consequences, as it were. What do you think the new administration should focus on? What do you think the new administration should do differently? And you just said that 8 years ago, insecurity was a main conversation in 2014 as President Buhari was coming in. Today, it still remains among the top 3 considerations and issues for Nigeria, both for economy locally, for investment, for life and property. So what should be done differently from June the 1st when the new administration officially takes office?
So just like your report highlighted, a manifesto, so to speak, has been released by the incoming administration called Renewed Hope. And in that manifesto, a 7-point agenda was listed, which your correspondent, so succinctly, indicated. Now, the good thing about that manifesto is that the incoming government has recognized and pledged to continue from where the President Buhari administration stopped. And I think government is a continuum, and I agree totally that the good areas that the Buhari administration has put forward should be built upon. And it's also makes a lot of sense to ask what are those gaps, what are those areas that the administration did not do well. So that, I think, it's for me, should be the beginning point. And I'm very happy to note that a transition council was put up under Executive Order 14, I think, by President Buhari. And that transition council includes a component on security, which was is being chaired by the Secretary to Government of the Federation. And I'm almost certain that a report on that will be submitted to the incoming administration. That report would include input from the representatives of the incoming administration. I think there were two, the current governor of Kebbi State and then someone else that the incoming administration nominated. Point I'm trying to make is that there was some form of handshake, handing over of the baton between the incoming administration and then the outgoing administration, and the component of it included security, which is a good point. Now, from those 7-point agenda listed under the Renewed Hope document, we know that some of what this administration plans to, the incoming administration plans to do, is to change the military doctrine, as an example. And that is, unfortunately, it's a very vague promise, as it were. The military doctrine, as an example, would include the defense policy, but what aspects of it will be changed? Now, to capture everything that is encapsulated under that 7-point agenda, I would say let's transit from the current state-centric approach to security to what the modern world is discussing, which is human security. What does human security speaks about? It speaks about the dignity of the human being. How do I, as a Nigerian, wake up and then relate the activities of my government to my protection? And that means if I'm living in the city of Lagos or the city of Abuja, or I'm living in the city of somewhere in Oyo State or in Kogi State or the rural area, I should be able to relate the activities of my government to the protection of my lives and property. And that is what human security speaks about. It has components of physical security, which is the kinetic component that government speaks about. It has elements of food security. It has elements of climate change. It has elements of health security. Name them. So move from that state-centric approach to security to the human-centric approach to security. And the only way that can be done is to close the gap between the federal government and the state government. There is a huge gap now. Even members of the ruling party, the outgoing governor of Niger State, the outgoing governor of Kaduna State, the outgoing governor of Ondo State, name them. All of them have come out in public. These are all members of the ruling party to complain about the synergy, as it were, between the federal and the state government. I can name several other governors that have complained about it. So I would advise strongly that the incoming administration looks at how it can close that gap. Suggestions have been proffered, including, as an example, how do you involve the governors into especially strategy building? Governors are chairpersons of their state security council, but increasingly you hear them complaining that they cannot, the security agencies are not answerable to them, and rightly so. But then how do you now listen to them more carefully in such a manner that you respond to their demand so that the people within their constituencies are protected more? I think that's something that the incoming administration should look at closely. The second point is security sector governance. There are about 27 ministries, departments, and agencies within the security sector. Each of these security MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies, has a mandate. Now, that mandate, we need to be able to measure their performance within the mandate that they have been provided. And that means enhanced supervision, enhanced oversight by the National Assembly. And that brings me to the role of the 10th Assembly within the space of governance, as it were. No arm of government has responsibility in terms of measuring the activities and performance of these MDAs more than the legislative arm of government. All the 27
yes.
are within the executive arm of government.
Very interesting conversation, and we thank you very much for raising this cause. And of course, it's a very huge conversation, insecurity and the nexus between social, human, and economic parameters of the country. Thank you so much, Dr. Kabiru Adamu from Abuja Studios. We appreciate your joining us live from Abuja this morning.